This video is not for you, it's for me. I have a tendency to downplay my past accomplishments and forget how much work went into things, but now that I'm doing YouTube and I'm making videos, there's a record of everything that I've done. So I feel the need to look back at the year that I had, the good and the bad and everything that went into it to make it what it was. And I have notes on my phone, so you'll see me looking down. The quantitative stuff is coming near the end, but first let's start with the qualitative stuff. Well, kind of. So the top 5 videos this year were the Centro video, the Rachel Maxey response video, my buying guide, which was the first video that I made of the year, the LK150 unboxing, and then the first project video, the like your first hat on the Centro video, which I think is a good mix of things of like, here's some tutorials, here's some intro to machine knitting, and here's some like other interesting stuff. So the most popular video was the Centro video. That was partly strategic because I've seen Centro videos get super popular and I know that Centro itself is a very popular machine, and I wanted to see what all the fuss was about and combine that with like, okay, I'm making money on YouTube now and I'm going to reinvest that money in the YouTube channel. And mostly what I learned is that the Centro is not for me. It's a bit like working with an easy bake oven when you have a full kitchen. Like, I have several flatbed machines with all the fancy accessories and parts, and I can make all kinds of cool stuff, and then the Centro is kind of like, and I understand why it's popular, I understand why people like it, it's just not for me. You may see it a few more times in the future, you may not. The second video was the Rachel Maxey video. When I saw Rachel Maxey pull out her grandmother's knitting machine, I knew that I was going to have to do something with it. But that video made me realize how inaccessible a lot of machine knitting knowledge is. So I am fully self-taught from resources I found on the internet, but I'm realizing now how poorly organized and how hard it is to find most of those things. Like, most of the patterns I got started with, I had to find on the Wayback Machine or archive.org. And I have a tendency to think that if I do something, then anybody can do it. Like, I found all these resources, I learned what I was doing really quickly, so anybody should be able to do that, but that's not necessarily the case. Which made me realize that, like, I need to put more effort into sharing these resources and bundling them together in a way that people can digest and learn and not have to go through the pain that I went through to find everything. Something else with this video, it almost didn't happen. I filmed the whole thing, and I did my reaction stuff, and then I made the top that she made in that video, and I exported all my footage and put it on a new hard drive. And then I started editing, and I wanted to upload an intermediate version of the video to YouTube to see if it would get copyright struck because I was using somebody else's material, and there was some music in the background, and I could not export the video. My software would not let me. And eventually I figured out that my new hard drive had corrupted all of my footage. Turns out I got one of the solid state drives that was in the bad batch from SanDisk that just has bad firmware and was corrupting all the files stored on them. Conveniently, I was able to recover all of that footage because I hadn't cleared the trash on my SD cards yet. So I was able to get it back and export and get that video up, and I'm glad that I did because I probably would have gone through the process of recreating it had I not been able to do that, but it wouldn't have been the same kind of video. And then we should talk about these two videos in conjunction. So I made the Centro video, and then a while later I made the Rachel Maxey video. The Rachel Maxey video started doing well. Her audience saw it and people had thoughts and feelings, and then the Centro video started doing well as well. And I really struggled with that. I used to have a really stressful job where I was responsible for an app, and we had live analytics and dashboards, and I would keep an eye on those analytics and dashboards. And whenever those numbers shot up significantly, it was because something had gone horribly, horribly wrong. And these problems weren't anything that we had any control over, and they weren't even technical problems. They were usually very human problems, but my team was responsible for dealing with the fallout anyway, despite the fact that we were engineers and were not at all prepared to deal with this kind of thing. So every time I looked at my YouTube dashboards when those videos were doing well, I had this moment of panic of like, oh my god, what is wrong? What happened? What meetings do I need to be in? Do I need to start a war room with the comms team? And it took some time to retrain my brain that like, okay, no, these graphs going up is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's all gonna be okay. As one of my old community managers used to say, it comes from a place of trauma. Something else that happened this year was the dress saga. I had a wedding to go to this summer and I wanted to make a dress to wear, but I had a lot to learn and a lot to figure out, so I knew it was going to be more than one video. So I split it up into a series. And then in June, I got sick. And I just kept getting sicker. And it took some time to figure out what was wrong with me. And then it took some more time to fight with my health insurance company to get the medication that I needed. And it took a long time to recover. I took 2 months off, not just from YouTube, but from my day job and my life. And I didn't really have the energy to do more than sit on the couch and watch Netflix. I'm still figuring out my new normal, and I'm still dealing with some issues, but I am in much better shape than I was then. I didn't make it as far in that dressmaking process as I wanted to. I wound up wearing one of my prototypes to the wedding, and I'm not going to post pictures because I was still pretty sick then, but it was fine. It wasn't quite what I wanted it to be, but it was fine. And maybe I'll pick that project back up this summer and keep iterating and take it as far as I wanted to go with it this year. Something else that happened this year, I got my first sponsor. I had been buying Color Mart yarn with my own money for a while and putting it in videos, and it sounds like some of y'all were telling them about it because they have a little referral program. So Color Mart was like reaching out to my emails trying to figure out who I was so they could give me like a little $10 credit or whatever it was. And I saw that and I reached out and I'm like, hey, I'm doing this thing. Like, if you ever want to collaborate, these are some ideas that I have. Let's see if we can work together. And they were cool with it. They were great to work with, and I'm hoping to work with them again in the future. The numbers are coming. I promise you the numbers are coming. But before we get there, let me get a little philosophical. I am not a performer. I am not an entertainer. I am not a filmmaker. And I am barely even a knitter. What I am is an engineer. I'm just trying to explain what's going on in my head and the way that I see the world, and doing that with YouTube videos. And YouTube is a big, complex system made up of software and human things. And I like big, complex systems. That's part of the reason that I'm a software engineer. The metrics and the dashboards that I get from YouTube give me some insight into how the system works and how my content is doing within that system. And I'm treating the whole thing as a big optimization problem. I'm not optimizing for views, because that way lies madness. I'm not optimizing for money. I'm a fairly senior Silicon Valley software engineer. If I wanted to make a lot of money, there are easier ways. What I'm optimizing for is learning and community and creative fulfillment and those little things, those little intangible things that I'm not getting enough of in the rest of my life. That being said, here are the numbers that I just told you are not important, but are kind of important, and we'll get to that. Oh shit, I didn't even look at them. So in this past year, I got almost 650,000 views on my videos, and I made $2,905 from YouTube ad revenue, and about $100 from Amazon affiliate money. And while these aren't what I'm optimizing for, they are good indicators that things are growing. This is my first year monetized, and I actually made some decent money. It's less than a month's rent for me, and I live in a very expensive part of the world, that's true, but it's more than nothing. And going from knowing nothing 2 years ago to making this much money now is significant. These are indications that I'm headed in the right direction, that I'm doing something right, that I'm getting better at making these videos and bringing more people along with me. And the whole thing's growing, which I'm really happy to see. So all told, I made less than a month's rent from YouTube this year, and I didn't even break even. Part of the reason that I didn't break even is because I bought this camera. This is a Lumix GH5 Mark II. I had my eye on the GH6, but it has a fan, and I didn't want that to interfere with the audio, so we're going with the GH5. But I'm on track to break even next year. I need probably one more camera and some better lighting equipment, and those will be my big expenses for next year. But beyond that, all I really need is yarn and consumables, whatever else I decide goes into any given project. And the income I get from ad revenue on YouTube videos should cover those costs. I'm not anywhere close to paying myself for my time and energy yet. We might get there someday. It becomes much easier to justify an expensive and time-consuming hobby when it just becomes time-consuming and it's no longer expensive. So I think I'm coming up on a ceiling. I think that these growth trends are not going to continue over the next year. I took a look at other actively posting YouTube machine knitters, and it looks like the audience for machine knitting on YouTube is only so big, and I'm going to hit that limit this year. I want this thing to keep growing. I want to keep pulling people in and bring them along with me. And there are a couple ways that I could keep the growth going. I could expand the type of content that I'm making. I could start adding sewing stuff. I could bring in wearable electronics, which I will probably do at some point, but not quite yet. I'm not quite ready for that yet. There's a lot of machine knitting content that I want to make, and I'm not going to run out of ideas for a long while. So the other option is to expand the audience, not by changing the content that I'm making, but by creating more machine knitters. And I think that's going to be the goal for the next year. I want to create more machine knitters. I want to get more of y'all involved and get your grandma's machine out of the attic and go find one at an estate sale and come join me in this wonderful hobby. So that means I'm going to be making a handful of beginner tutorials to help people get started. I've already got the buying guide and the intro to the LK150 if you want to check those out. But it also means that I'm going to make some fun videos that show off what is possible with machine knitting. And I've got a bunch of iconic sweaters that I want to recreate with different techniques. And then I'm going to sprinkle in the kind of videos that I really like, where I'm like fixing bugs in AYAB and building software tools and like all of the deeply technical stuff that I like. So that's the only goal that I'm setting for the next year. I'm not trying to hit any subscriber count. I'm not trying to hit any financial goals. It's just, let's build more community. Let's bring more people into this and let's get more people knitting. A big thank you to all of you who are coming along for the ride for this. The feedback that you give me in the comments helps determine what's working and what's not. It helps me figure out what I'm going to make next. If you have any requests for videos, now is the time to make them as I'm planning out my next year. I'm looking forward to what the next year brings. Is that my whole script? That's my whole script. I did a thing. It's been a year. I spent quite the year. The shorts. So I went kind of ham on the shorts at the end of the year. I refined the process down to the point where I can, once I have a whole long form video edited, I can pull a short out of it in about 10 minutes. And short form content is really popular right now. YouTube is pushing it really hard. The videos do really well in a short period of time and then kind of fizzle. But it's an opportunity to pull more people in that wouldn't otherwise see the content. And it's minimal effort on my part to get it to happen. It is to be determined if those people will stick around and watch the long form stuff or if they're only interested in the few short form videos that I make. It's an experiment for now. If the shorts are bothering you, let me know. If you found me through the shorts and started watching the long form videos, let me know. If you have any other thoughts and feelings about the videos that I've made this year, please let me know. All right, thanks for watching. Happy knitting.